Hi everybody, welcome back to the Digital Art and Vinyl series of Extravaganza. I'm Madeline Dunster, and tonight I'm going to be showing you how to do some lovely My Legacy albums and Everyday Life albums using some of our SVG files and using our heat transfer vinyl. So these are some of our SVGs that you can get. That's a lovely one, it's one of my favourites, and I've just added a font to that one. I'm going to be teaching you how to put this SVG file onto a D-Ring My Legacy album, and I've changed out the word on that one from Road to 2018. I've also got a little notebook which I'm going to personalize a lovely Christmas album to put my very nice retreat album in, my retreat pages in. And then I've made a small collection for a man, so a masculine collection. So that's a mouse pad that I've decorated, a journal, a passport cover, and a luggage tag to go with that album. So I thought that was a nice collection for a man, a masculine collection. We don't often do things that are masculine. And I will be showing you just a few tips and tricks that I do along the way. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is what heat to use when you're using your either a heat press or an iron. So I like to use the Cricut.com heat guide, and you just select your machine, then the material that you'll be heating, and then the base that you'll be putting it on, whether or not you're using a heat press mat or a towel as your surface, and then you just hit apply. And it instantly gives you exact instructions on what you should do. So I do find that very, very helpful. The preheat is actually something that I have started to see the importance of it. You need to preheat your surface. So it tells you everything here. Preheat your surface for 5 seconds. Then it's got the application there of what you should actually do. So it's telling you to place your iron-on vinyl face down with the liner side up, the carrier sheet facing up. Press with light pressure for 270 degrees for 20 seconds and slowly remove the liner when it's cool to touch. And that really is important. If you peel too early, you will pull it away from the surface, and you can damage the surface. So let's look at my first project, and that's going to be my Legacy D-Ring album, and I'm also going to be putting on it the gold glitter vinyl, and I've used my heat press mat there just to make that nice and flat. It was kind of laying on an angle, so I've just evened that up with the mat, and I'm going to show you how I took away, it did say road trip, it said, so I've just taken those letters off because I'm going to put 2018 in there. So that was quite easy, just to peel them away once they were cut. And then after I've put the main image down, then I'll put the 2018 down. So first of all, we'll line it all up and make sure it's nice and square in the center of our album. We don't want to have it wonky. So yep, so just testing to see where I should be centering that on my page. And then I will need to preheat that surface. And my heat press has been on for a good 5 minutes, so it's come to temperature, and so I've followed those instructions exactly, and it tells me that I need to preheat that for 5 seconds. So I don't actually put it on for 5 seconds. You'll see the color red change quite dramatically as soon as I put that heat press anywhere near that cover. So yeah, I just touch it lightly, and you can see how dark that is. It's really hot. So I'm just literally tapping it on, and then I'm going to position my vinyl over the top of that. And once again, I'll make sure it's nice and square. I would probably recommend a Teflon sheet or some baking paper in between your heat press and your album, just to make sure that you don't burn it. I have in the past dinted an album by pushing down too hard with my heat press. So if you can get some Teflon sheets or some baking paper, that will help alleviate the chance of you burning your cover set. I haven't ever burnt one, but I really would hate to. So I'm going to use a Teflon sheet because I do know that cover set is very hard. It's very hot, sorry. And I'm going to follow the instructions. So it's saying 130 degrees Celsius for 20 seconds. So I'll put that down and push the 20-second button. So after this demonstration, I'm going to do my Legacy D-ring album, and I'm going to, an Everyday Life album, and I'm going to be using my iron. So I'm going to do a demonstration with the heat press, followed by a demonstration with the iron. So if you haven't got a heat press, don't worry. I'm just showing you how I do it with the heat press. So I'm just holding it nice and still and doing the second half of the cover with the same method. I wouldn't wiggle it around at this stage. I don't want the image to move. Once I'm sure it's secured, I don't mind moving the heat press around, but it is very heavy and not sort of my favourite thing to do a cover set with. I do prefer to use the iron, but I just thought for the purpose of the demonstration, I'd show you how that works. So as you can see, that is very hot. So we'll wait for that to cool down. I'm just using the Teflon sheet there to push down and make sure it's completely adhered to the surface of the album. And then I'll once I'm happy with it being nice and cool, I will peel it off. So I always peel across. I never peel straight up. I always peel from one side to the other. And as you can see there, it hasn't quite attached at the top. So it will, if it's not attached, the best thing to do is put your sheet back on and repress. So I'm going to put the Teflon sheet back on. That's mainly so I don't mark the part of the cover of the album that isn't protected by the carrier sheet. So I'm just moving it around now just to make sure all those little edges are sealed. And let's see. So as you can see, it's still quite hot. So we'll let that cool down, and once I'm happy that it's cooled down, I'll start peeling it, and just very, very gently. So there we are, it's nice and cool now. So I'll start peeling down, and there's a tiny bit still not attaching up at the top there, but I think the rest of it definitely is. So I'll come back with my mini and fix that up. So I'm just doing very gently peeling across the cover of the album, and trying very hard not to pull too fast in case I come to a piece that's not attached. So we're nearly there. And it's worthwhile taking your time at this stage just to make sure you don't spoil your cover. And then I'll put the Teflon sheet back on and use my mini just to, as you can see, it's very sticky, that carrier sheet. So I'll just use the heat press mini, and I'll just go over those two little parts at the top and the bottom that weren't attaching. And that may have been because the cover set wasn't hot enough, the album cover wasn't hot enough when I first put my sheet down. So that is the reason you warm it up before you start. It sort of preheats that stickiness on the back of your vinyl. So now I'm going to position the 2018 at the top. I'm really pleased with that. It looks lovely, really looks nice, the gold on the red. And then I will use the mini to attach those. So I've just positioned those numbers there. Just go back and forward a few times and make sure they're attached, remembering that surface is already warm. So you don't really need to do a lot. And just keep it moving. Don't sort of sit still on your cover set. You don't want to burn it or leave a mark. So they should be perfectly attached. And you can see how hot it is. You can see that's really dark red. So once that's cooled down, we'll give it a little minute. There we are. And now they're going to come away. This one is still not quite done. Even though it was very hot, it's still not quite done. And the same with the O. So we'll just take the ones off that are attached. Yep, that's perfect. And now we'll just redo that 0 and 1 just to make sure, just a couple of seconds with that. Doesn't need a lot of time, but I am more cautious than rushing in with it too hot. I'd rather it be take me a couple more passes with the heat press. So that should be done. And I'm really pleased with that. I just really love that cover set. It's really gorgeous. It's just a lovely texture, and it really takes the heat transfer vinyl very, very well. And yeah, so there we are. That's our first project done. I will go over that one more time just to make sure that all of those letters are attached, and it looks great. So I'm very pleased with that cover set. That took just a few minutes and it has a huge big impact on the cover. So I'm very pleased with that. So the next project we're going to do, that was using our heat press. The next one I'm going to do is using an iron. So I've got an old iron that I have taken all of the water out of, and I will stress that it's very important that you do not have any water in your iron, because as you're ironing, you don't want a sudden gush of steam coming out. So that has no water in it, and I set it to cotton. So I don't know the exact temperature, but I make sure it's set to cotton. So let's bring in our Everyday Life album, and on this one I'm going to be doing some layers. So whereas this was basically just the gold on here, on the next cover set we're going to be doing some different layers and colors. So there you can see that one's finished and it looks great. And here's my Everyday Life album. So you'll see the difference with the iron. You have a little bit more control. I like to keep all my cut pieces on baking paper. It stops me from losing them, and yeah, it's just a nice easy way to, if you've pre-cut things, you can put them on the baking paper and they stay together. So I'm going to put my title on my album cover first. So I'll move all of those other things away. Once again, just take your time and measure. It's always better, to measure twice and heat press once. Yeah, so I'm just going to position that title towards the top of my cover set and center it down the middle. And then I'll move the leaves for the wreath away and my berries. And this time I'm still going to use my Teflon sheet. I think it's really important that you do protect the outside of that cover set. The carrier sheet for the vinyl is protecting the surface, but nothing's protecting the rest of the surface. So my iron's heated to temperature now, and I'm just going to go back and forward and up and down. I don't actually know the exact temperature of my iron, but I have got it on the cotton setting, so the hottest setting that you can have it on. And it's better to do a couple of passes and be happy that it hasn't, burnt your cover. And once again, you still need to wait for it to cool down. So I'd follow the same instructions as with the heat press. Let it cool down. And then as you can see, that has peeled away much more easily than it did with the heat press on my cover. So now I've positioned the wreath around the center. And that took a bit of fiddling. I don't know why I chose that particular layout, but it took me a while to get that to be centered, but it was worth taking the time. So I'm just going over this with the iron a couple of times, so back and forward and then up and down, even pressure. Do not push hard. Let the heat from the iron do all the work. So you'll notice as I'm peeling up here, that bottom one has just caught underneath the leaf. It's not a problem. I'm going to be putting those berries on, so that's going to hide. So you'll see when I get to this, it is quite stuck. It's not coming off. And it really is better not to pull it. Do not tug at that, because the vinyl will just stretch and balloon and come off, and it will look awful. So all I'm going to do there is I'm just going to use my scissors and cut it away. It does leave a little hole in my leaf, but I'm not worrying about that. I'm going to be using those red glitter berries to embellish that, so it's not a big deal. So I'm just going to cut those into individual pieces, and then I will place them around my wreath. And I'll just speed up the video here. You don't really need to see me sticking berries down, but as you can see, yep, you can use anything like this to decorate or to cover up something. Just be be creative. And these are glitter berries, so these are slightly different to what I've just used. I just used the matte vinyl. So once again, I'm going to put my Teflon sheet down and press it down, and then a couple of times over with the iron. The cover set itself is already hot, so the album cover has already been heated up, and that heat would be staying in the vinyl. So I don't need to be too crazy with the heat, and you'll see they've definitely attached. So I'll take all of those off, and that's done. That is my cover set done, and inside that cover set is going to be my pages from the album retreat that we just completed, and I'm really pleased with that. So that's going to be a gift for my niece for Christmas. Another one done. So these pages from the album retreat were just unbelievably beautiful. So I hope everyone's registered for the January album retreat. I definitely have. I've got my customers coming and fellow consultants in my team, and I really can't wait to do the next one. So that's my project done. So this next project is just a little notebook, and it's a notebook I just got from a local newsagent, and I've cut out my friend Ella's name using a pretty font. And I'm going to be using, this time I'm going to be using the Heat Press Mini. It's my little favorite. I actually love this so much. I use it all the time. So I followed the heat guide. I've set it to the temperature it is for faux leather and glitter heat transfer vinyl. And it tells me to preheat this surface, and you'll see it's stuck. So very, very gently, because it's a synthetic surface, so you don't want to melt it. So a little bit of heat is all it needs. And I'm definitely putting some Teflon with this one, because I could see straight away that had the potential to melt. So I'll just keep moving that around in circles. I don't want to get that too hot. I have no idea, if that's going to melt or not. So let's have a look and see how we went. And just gorgeous. So that is such an easy project to do. Personalize a cover, a cute little notepad. You could give that to your team members or nieces. Just gorgeous. Now the last project we're going to be doing is the mouse mat for my husband's set, and I've upped the heat on this. So I've put the Heat Press Mini on the second, the middle heat, and I'm not going to worry about putting any Teflon with this, because I really need the vinyl to get hot. This is a non-porous surface. It's a nylon surface, and it needs to be quite warm. Otherwise, it just will not stick. So I need that beautiful gold heat press vinyl to get very, very hot. So I'm going to be just going around and around, heating the sections. And as you can see, it has not even closed. It hasn't come away from the carrier sheet yet. So I'll just keep going around and around, heating each section, but not staying still. Don't stay still in any of the sections. You don't want to burn it. So I'll just keep moving, and eventually I'll notice that the gold is coming away from the carrier sheet. And once I'm happy with that, I'll give it some time to cool down, and I'll peel. So as I said earlier, peeling across, not up. So don't pull it up, pull it across. So run your fingers basically across the piece of work, and that way you'll avoid pulling it off, because you don't want to do that, especially if it hasn't stuck properly. So there we are. That's our last piece for tonight, and that was a really fun collection to make. So Now that I've taken the carrier sheet away, I'll give it one more once over. I'm just using the baking paper there to protect the surface, and I'm really pleased with that. It looks lovely, very lush and really masculine. Nice for a man, a nice gift for a man. So let's have a look at what we did. We did some cover sets and we did a little personalized album. Very pleased with that. See you all tomorrow.